Hello everyone, Carnasa here and welcome back to Coming Home. So, for the voiceover for this week, I am going to have to attempt to do this all in one take because I have some family commitments that I need to be attending to. So, here goes nothing. So this episode, base building, Kerbal style. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be attempting to set up a surface base on Lua and also expanding Definitely Not Jamestown, which is my surface base on Armstrong, a little bit as well. This first vehicle that we have launched from Definitely Not Another Gateway is going to be a new construction rover for our Lua surface site. Reason being, I have already sent one down, and I did do that as the first launch in the last episode. However, after having redesigned the base, the old rover would not be capable of moving those modules around, so we needed something different to be able to do that. I have this kind of weird contraption on the back of this rover as well, that yellow section of the rover. I was kind of hoping that I would be able to lift this module that I landed rather badly in the live stream with that magnet. Unfortunately, it seems like that this magnet does not work that way and actually just clips through the part rather than doing anything useful. So I had to abandon that idea, but this rover is still going to be useful because this will be able to connect up to the parts of the base that we are going to set down, as I am going to try and demonstrate with this nuclear reactor that we have put down, the first module of the Lua base. With a little bit of bumping, we were able to actually connect these two parts together, and that meant that I finally was able to gain control over this reactor, and I could set its power down so that we weren't, well, producing loads and loads of heat. So next module that we're going to be sending down is going to be that same module that was tipped on its side. This time, rather than attempting to fly this into position, which is what I did do on the last live stream, we are going to be using that new construction rover to hopefully safely maneuver this rather large and rather kind of, well, not maneuverable piece of the base. I mean, it's very tall and it's not exactly that wide, so it's quite difficult to actually move this around. But we have made our way over to Lua. Once again, this was built from Definitely Not Another Gateway. I am going to be using that space station for pretty much the entirety of every single module that we are going to be sending down to the two moons. Pretty much every module? Every single module. We are going to be building every single module in space. That's something that I have wanted to do for a while. It saves on launching these from Rhode. All we need to do is actually launch the parts to Definitely Not Another Gateway. So I'm not going to include those launches in this episode. I have done them. It's the same thing over and over again. And I've already shown in previous episodes the launches of the supply modules to Definitely Not Another Gateway. So I didn't really feel like that would have been anything particularly interesting to watch. But we did manage to connect that solid supplies module. Now we are going to be launching the liquid supplies module, which is almost identical in the fact, well, it's a supply module. The solid supplies could hold components such as material kits, specialized parts, metals, all of the kind of solid cargo that we are going to be producing at this base. The liquid supplies module is going to do the same, but with liquids such as liquid fuel and oxidizer, chemicals, and water. So that's what those three large silver tanks are going to be able to contain. But there we go, we have made our way over to the base again, and that actually looked a little bit like I was almost dropping kind of bombs on the base. Detaching that section of the transfer vehicle looked a little bit dangerous, and we very, very nearly sent our transfer stage slamming into the two sections of the base, or two sections, yes, of the base that we had already set down. Anyway, we are coming in nice and slowly now, actually managing to bump the solid storage module as we came down. So this stage was a bit more maneuverable, so I thought, rather than getting that construction rover again for everything, let's see if we can use the sky crane to maneuver this into position. It was a bit easier to move this, and I don't know if I just got a little bit luckier with this actual module than that original storage module, but I was able to connect these two modules together without actually having to get that construction rover, which was really kind of nice. It meant that I didn't have to faff around for ages lining up the docking ports with a rover. I didn't have to do lots of weird driving maneuvers to get them into place. No, I could just keep taking this thing off and maneuvering it until it was in the perfect position. Unfortunately, the roll on it was not the best, and I have included this entire section just to show you kind of what I went through whilst putting all of these pieces together. This is still sped up to 4 times speed in post-processing, by the way. So all of these modules took a really long time to actually set down, and this is the only one that I've shown the entirety of. And this one was one of the shorter ones, so it did take a really long time. But with that being done, we have more modules that we are going to be launching from Definitely Not Another Gateway. This is going to be our workshop module, which is going to be capable of producing colony supplies, specialized parts, and machinery. All kind of vital if we want a long-term self-sustaining colony. We are also going to need a way of being able to produce material kits, but do not worry, I have come up with that already. The supply module, the first one that we sent down, actually contains 2 smaller workshops, which are going to be more than capable of providing the material kits that we are going to need for this surface base on Lua. As it stands, the surface base is just called Surface Base Alpha or Lua Base Alpha, purely because it is the first surface base that I have set down on this moon. If people have a better recommendation for a name for the surface base that we are going to be putting down on the surface of Lua, why not drop that in a comment? Because as is always the case, I seem to be really unimaginative with actually coming up with names for these kind of locations. So feel free to drop a comment below for any of your suggestions. But here we have once again come very close to the base, and it is just a very nice, slow, gentle touchdown. Except we're not going to touch down yet. We are going to move closer to the base. This is another module that I have attempted to connect without using the rover. And we did yet again manage to do it, even though we did also once again smash into that fuel tank that is on the side there, that large silver fuel tank. I'm very glad that that isn't full up of anything at the moment, because I'm fairly certain... Oh no, that's our water one. I could see H2O on the side. I thought that was liquid fuel and oxidizer, so we wouldn't really want to be sending something smashing into rocket fuel. I feel like that would be very explosive indeed. So... yet again, we have yet another module that we are going to be sending down to this Lua surface base. This is going to be our Habitation module, and this is where our brave Kerbonauts are going to be spending most of their time on this surface base. This has 4 Hab modules attached, and it also has 4 agroponics units, so we are able to convert our Kerbal's waste supplies into useful supplies. We can turn their mulch back into actual supplies. But we have yet again made our way over to Rhode's closest neighbor, Lua. I swear you are going to be sick of this moon by the end of this episode. I mean, we are going to take a slight intermission later on by going back to Armstrong, but everything at the moment is going to take place within the Rhode system, purely because I don't have any transfer windows coming up for a really long time, and my interplanetary missions that I have set out so far, well, none of those are going to be returning for a very long time either. If you manage to catch Kerbal Alarm Clock, we've still got way over a year before any of our crewed interplanetary missions are going to return, and I am very much looking forward to that happening, purely because I am going to get so much funding and so much science once those missions come back, because obviously they've gone to the surface of Hydrus and Sindo and Hydrun, So we have a lot of surface samples that we are going to be returning to our space agency. And that is going to be incredibly useful because I currently can't make a base self-sufficient. There are some technologies that I still need to research in order to be able to achieve that. Primarily one that I imagine, and it's to do with refining exotic minerals and rare metals into refined exotics. I need another probably about 3,000 science points before I am able to unlock the node that gives me the part that allows me to do that. So I am really hopeful that those interplanetary missions are gonna bring me in a huge amount of science so that I am able to finally completely set up these bases so that they are completely self-sufficient. There we go. We have attached the HAB module. However, this was something rather weird that happened. I have enabled ground tether and the base started moving. And then the rover decided to be attacked by the Kraken and lost its back wheels. That was a shame. That was rather upsetting, purely because now I have no construction rover on the surface of Lua. So if I want to send any new base modules down, I am going to have to do that in a rather different way. And I do that in a different way later on in the episode, but we are gonna have our first actual launch of this episode. The first launch I have done in a while, not counting the launches to actually resupply, definitely not another gateway, but this is going to be the first crew that we are going to send down to the new Lua base. Lua base Alpha, if you will. I mean, that's what it's called at the moment, but we have made it rather safely. Once again, we are just using the Chimera passenger variant that I used in the last episode to go over to Ash. It can carry more Kerbals, and it also is capable of refilling itself on site. Not that that matters, because we should be able to refill this from the surface base anyway. But we are going to get our Kerbonauts out, and I want to come over to this rover that I built in the last episode, because there was a little hidden surprise in the middle. We have a rover within a rover. It is roverception, if you will. So I wanted to use this rover just to do a little bit of driving around with a solitary Kerbal on board. So we've got Pexakerman to come push this out of the rover. Pexakerman decided to drink his potion of invisibility and disappear from the surface of Lua there. He's still there. He hasn't died. He just decided that, yeah, he's got active camouflage on or something and went invisible. Rather bizarre, but unfortunately, I wasn't actually able to get into the rover. Despite climbing up to it, despite attacking it from all angles, I wasn't able to get a board option, so we're going to have to scrap that plan, which is a little bit of a shame. But with that being done, and that rover being a little bit of a failure, I'm going to turn back to the Chimera. We're going to bring the remaining 4 astronauts, Kerbonauts, over to the base, and the final Kerbonaut that we are going to bring over, Heathy Kerman, has a bit of a special task. I mean, it's not exactly massively special, but we are going to be getting Heathy Kerman back out because I want to disassemble as many of the redundant parts on this base as possible. The cleaner I keep these bases, the better it is going to be for my frame rate when I come over here. And trust me, I was getting about 8 to 9 frames per second around this already, and I really don't want to get to a point where I just don't ever want to come back to these bases just because it is so painful to visit them. So I am going to try and keep on top of that. I'm going to try and keep them clean, and I'm going to try and remove any rubbish that I need to. So we are going to have another launch. This is going to be an entire brand new crew of Kerbonauts. I had them up on the top right there. I didn't have time to read through all of them, but I went through the Discord and I added a whole load of new Kerbals to the space program. This is going to be our return to Definitely Not Jamestown, as we haven't been there for quite some time. I have kind of abandoned that colony, and what I want to do now is I want to go back and I want to make it useful. The main reason why I haven't been going there is it just wasn't really useful. It didn't do much other than looking like quite a cool surface base. So we're going to send this crew over. And what we're going to do is we are going to send some new modules over later on in this episode. I need to send a workshop module down because that is something that I never had when I originally put down that base, purely because I had not unlocked the technology for it yet. But as soon as we have that workshop module down, well, Armstrong is producing so much resources. So many resources. I have kept this booster landing in because it did fail. I did mention every time that one failed, I would show them just to show that they aren't all going completely successfully. It's a bit of a shame because those boosters actually cost quite a lot of money. But anyway, we have made it over to Definitely Not Jamestown. It has been a very long time since I have been here, and we are just going to touch down rather gently, rather close to this surface base. There we go. We have landed now. And we just need to open this up because I need to attach ground tether whenever I am at Armstrong. If anyone caught one of my older live streams for coming home, if you don't ground tether using the USI parts, your parts all just mysteriously vanish through the surface of Armstrong. Anyway, that being said, now what we're going to be doing, once again, we are going to be doing a bit of cleanup. So the reason why I got rid of that launch pad there is because it wasn't actually technically connected to the base according to Connected Living Space, so we weren't getting any productivity from it, which made it pretty much useless. So that is another module that I am going to have to send down to Definitely Not Jamestown again, but we will do it this time in a way that means it will actually work. I'm also getting rid of these batteries because now that we have nuclear power on Definitely Not Jamestown, we don't really need that massive amount of batteries that I originally laid down for the solar panels because we're never going to run out of power with that nuclear power station. So I did say we did need to send down a workshop module, so this is it yet again, launched from Definitely Not another gateway. I have really made a lot of use out of that space station. I am so incredibly thankful that I put that up and that I am using it. I know I am going to be building interplanetary ships with that station as well, and that is something that hopefully will come relatively soon. As soon as I've got a new transfer window, or a good transfer window up to another planet. Here we are setting down this workshop module though. This is going to be slightly different in every module that I have sent down so far, in the fact that before, the connectors have always been static. You have to line the connectors up. You can't do anything with them. This module has flexible docking ports on it, which means I can get a Kerbal to grab the docking port and connect it whilst on EVA, which is really cool. However, I didn't realize that the original ones weren't able to be connected to. So we've got Chris Kerman out. He is going to be doing a little bit of construction on EVA. He had to remove one of the original docking ports and move the flexible docking port from the other side over. But he was able to do that just fine. So now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be trying to send down a medical bay and a logistics unit and also a launch pad to not Jamestown, to our new surface base on Lua. However, this was our first attempt, and this was something that was really bizarre. So usually when you launch something with extraplanetary launch pads, it will bring up a menu which allows you to fill it up with resources. That wasn't happening now. What was happening is the part was getting stuck to the ship. So I had to disassemble that first one, and then the exact same thing happened on the second attempt. However, I tried to disassemble the actual launch pad to see that if I could launch this craft and then maybe attach a new launch pad to Definitely Not Another Gateway using some kind of docking port mechanism. But that wouldn't work because I couldn't assemble the launch pad because it had child nodes, so I was unable to do that. However, I did notice, once I had done that, once I had gone on EVA and returned into the space station, Extraplanetary Launchpad started working again, which meant that, well, I didn't need to do any of that and I could just release the craft. Unfortunately, the first variant of this vehicle wasn't very successful in the fact that I had accidentally blocked off 2 of the engines of that sky crane with some attachment ports on the side, so we went slamming into Lewis Ocean a bit too quickly. This is an incredibly Kerbal design, I feel. This is very asymmetrical. The center of thrust does go through the center of mass just slightly, but that is only because I have offset the main engine to get us over here quite considerably. Once again, I have one of those engines on that sky crane blocked off, which meant this was a really difficult landing. I could have sworn I removed all of those on this 3rd attempt, but no, you can see on the left there is a docking port in the way. So with that being done, we are going to take a Kerbal out and we are going to remove that docking port, because now that that has been removed, this thing should be a lot easier to control, this medbay module. So it was, and I've kept this entire flight up because you can see I only have 90 meters per second now, and I just wanted to show how tight this was, getting this into a position where I could actually connect it to the base. There we go. We've got 7 meters per second of delta V left, and now we are out. But we are still able to maneuver this slightly using the RCS that is on board. So we can move it a little bit closer. I feel like that would have been close enough anyway, but I just kind of wanted it to line up a bit better. And I don't actually think our rover, well, our rover's dead anyway. I don't think that would have been able to maneuver this because those flexible docking ports, once again, don't connect to regular docking ports. So Heathy Kerman is going to have to come out and do a slight few modifications. I lost the ability to talk there, to the base so that we can actually connect that module up. Now that we have the logistics module installed, we can access planetary logistics, which means that we can fill up that liquid fuel and oxidizer tank, and it also means that we can send this sky crane back up to space. Despite having used all of its fuel to land, well, we have fuel within the planet that we can access. So we are going to send this back up to space. We are going to rendezvous with that launch pad. And unfortunately, my game broke when I landed this, so I can't show you the landing. Real shame. But, oh well, these things happen.